And so I think a lot of times we view the gospel as so basic that it's not worth teaching on. I say that and I almost feel sacrilegious saying that, you know what I mean? Like, ooh, dodge that bolt, but I think that's how a lot of times I knew my mindset would go as a youth pastor. I would get so fixated on maybe like the topic or the hot topic, combined with all the programming that we were trying to do to try to get kids into our youth group, that I would often view this idea of the gospel as something that, well, they're in church. Everyone already knows this.
Hey everyone, welcome to Vitals for Youth Ministry podcast, a resource of Lead the Generation. My name is Aaron, director of Lead the Generation and co-host for this podcast. I got Caleb Leak with me today.
Yeah, not as cool as Aaron, but still a cool guy.
Actually cooler, younger, and you have hair.
That's true. That doesn't make me cooler though.
I don't know.
You wear it well. I'm also a youth pastor.
Right.
I've been a youth pastor for 5 years.
Yeah. And we got the dog in the studio here. But most importantly, we got Johnny Mendoza with us today. Johnny is the district youth director for the state of Georgia. And Johnny, thanks for joining us today. Glad to have you with us.
Oh man, it is absolutely my honor and joy to get to be with you guys. You guys are awesome. Excited. We love Vitals here in Georgia. And so just the opportunity to spend some time talking about it is really exciting for me. So thanks so much.
Heck yeah. And Vitals for Youth Ministry, this is the podcast. We have an extended conversation about an amazing resource called Vitals for Youth Ministry. But before we get into all that, we love having youth pastors, youth directors, youth evangelists on here because everyone in youth ministry has that one story of a youth pastor doing something stupid or a student doing something stupid. It's just, it's a plague that follows all of us and it's inescapable. And so,
it's a
Johnny,
pandemic.
You're our special guest of honor. And so we need to hear
the story.
The story, the youth pastor story that you have that every time at the dinner table, you're like, all right, here's what we're sharing. You have that one story.
Totally. And so, I definitely went through my list, of just kind of, I was.
Good youth pastors do have a list. It's not one story. It's many stories of what should I choose.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, honestly, for us, one of the things, we were youth pastors at our previous church before coming into this role as DYD, and it was my first event away with our students, and so we had to everyone has to share hotel rooms and things like that, and that's I always love events. I love when with youth pastors and students because that's where the memories really get made. That's where like, oh, do you remember that? You remember when? You remember, and it's great opportunity for community, but it's also great conversation and great stories. But this in particular, I was rooming with three other guys, and we were going to sleep, and all of a sudden I wake up in the middle of the night to what really seemed to me was just the most egregious snoring that I've ever heard in my life. Like it sounded like a bear was getting eaten by another bear who also had his leg trapped in a bear trap while another bear laughed in the corner. Like it was just like, it was just, all of this was just like piled on top. And I was just like, there's no way. Like, and I grew up with a dad who snored. So on family trips, stuff like that, like I knew how to handle that. Like it was nothing new, but this was new. Like it was something supernatural that was happening within that student. And I tried praying. I did. I'm a spiritual guy. Like I tried my best. And, I put earbuds in. I'm listening to music. I'm like, I'm like Stephen Curtis Chapman, please, help this guy. I had to age myself a little bit there, by calling out.
You don't even know who that is.
Yeah, I do. Come on. I'm diving in, bro. Yeah, I know. Yeah, you can carbon date yourself.
I'm just cranking up the worship music, like something like I need, I'm not trying to be a jerk to this guy. Like, I'm new here. I'm, whatever. It still wasn't working. So I moved into the bathtub. I literally, yeah, like we were in a hotel room. I went to the bathroom. I tried to sleep in the bathtub.
Whoa, you bunkered in like it was like a storm coming.
I did. And I mean, it was louder than a storm. So like it was, you just felt, I mean, this would be Twisters too. Like it was like literally like I'm in there and like literally I got no sleep that night. Like and I don't want to mention the guy's name, but like I was just like, dude, I think you have a condition. Like that is like
there's this thing called sleep apnea.
You need to get this. You need to get this looked at. So, needless to say, that was the last time that guy was in my room.
Yeah, of course.
So
yeah.
So
he goes on the list after that,
right? So what ended up happening was how we hazed new male youth leaders in our youth group. So whenever we had a new adult join our team and we were going away on a trip, we always knew where that student was going to be rooming because they always had to room with the new guy.
Dude,
because that was how we said, hey, because we just said like if they can endure that and they still want to be on the team, then we're like, they're in.
It's a good test.
Wow.
It's a good test.
Wow.
So that was our litmus test for loyalty.
Well played.
When we would go on trips. Yeah.
Dude, you know what's hilarious is just this past summer, I also had a conversation with a student where I was like, hey, buddy, I think you might have sleep apnea and you might need to get it checked out. So I think that might be just a youth ministry standard thing of that one kid who just snores like a Nissan Altima is being blended up. Like, it's like, what's happening? Oh, absolutely, man, bro. Wow. Yeah. And to turn it into a way to recruit leaders and wow.
I think it's just, that I think good leaders make the most of every opportunity. And so we just took it
Gotta leverage it. Gotta leverage it.
We took lemons and made lemonade. So it was very important.
Bro. That's amazing.
That's great. Like I didn't know where it was going. Like anytime you start telling a youth mystery story, when it was like, I was rooming with 3 guys.
Dude, yeah.
There's so many different paths that can happen at that. Like my mind is racing. Like which one are we going down for this story?
Yeah.
Yeah. We took the sleep apnea route. Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah.
It's so good. Hey, Johnny, before we jump into our conversation today, real quick, just tell us a little bit about your family. I just always want people to get to know you and, like not just the role that you're serving, but a little bit about like, your family. So just fill us in.
For sure. So I'm married, been married for 19 years to my wife, Ginger.
Go.
Come on.
Yeah. We met, I was 13, she was 14. And,
no way, you guys did it. That's crazy.
Wow.
So I definitely confessed my love to her when I was 13 years old. Completely freaked her out. And so she actually lived in another state, but she would come and spend the summers in my town where we lived. And so like, that's where you make all the fun memories, like youth group trips and stuff during the summer. So we knew each other for a really long time. And then on March 1st, 2005, we started dating officially. And then got married.
Is this college or is this high school? Where were you at when it was 2005?
So we finally started dating. This was post college.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Wow.
You guys single-handedly busted every youth pastor's sermon on don't date as a teenager.
Well,
it never works out.
I tell this story because the thing is we didn't date because I told you I freaked her out. When I say I freaked her out, like she was like,
like you got on one knee kind of thing and was like, hey, let's make this
there was no, I didn't get on one knee, but I gave her a ring. Like no
joke.
Way.
Come on.
I was 13 and went to a pawn shop in our town and was like, I found it was like $12 and she still has the ring.
Oh, that's so amazing.
So whenever I tell this story to students, I say, look at your neighbor and say, this is not advice. Like,
this is not.
So I'm just telling you my story like this. God worked it all out and, his timing was perfect. But yeah, I was an intense 13-year-old and
wow.
And so, but yeah, God worked it out, man. And the minute we started dating, we just knew like, we were going to be married probably within the next 18 months. So,
wow.
So God worked that out. And so it's been awesome. And we have a 10-year-old son, named Micah and he's awesome, man. We love getting to do, life and ministry together. We were youth pastors, since 2009. And then I became a district youth director here in Georgia, in 2022.
Nice.
So for the last 3 years, we've been doing this, and man, we just love we love students. We love student ministry. It's it was something that God really just developed in me. Like it wasn't something that was even really on my radar. I grew up as a like musician. Always felt like if I did anything for Jesus, it was going to be music. It was going to be something in that area. When I first got hired on, it was in my home church in Georgia, and I was the youth and worship pastor. But I used to do everything I could to run away from things like preaching and stuff like that. And I just had good leaders in my life, man, that would see things in me that I didn't see in myself, and just would give me opportunities to lead in that way. And I think that those are the things that really made me want to stay in youth ministry. Like I want to be able to do for students what leaders did for me.
Yeah.
So we love getting to do this, man. We love the youth pastors here in Georgia, man. We've been just enjoying the community and the fellowship and just what we've been able to do to come alongside them. And like we mentioned with Vitals, man, Vitals has been a huge part of it. We last year we launched something called Gym Class, because Gym stands for Georgia Youth Ministry. And one of the key elements of Gym Class has been giving our youth pastors access to Vitals, and letting them kind of have those resources in them. So we love getting to do what we do. We love Aaron. Aaron's been to our camps and different events for us. And Caleb, I love you by association, bro. First day, man.
And I take that.
Yeah. But yeah, no, we love getting to do what we do for sure.
Heck yeah.
Amazing. Well, we love the fact that you're like one of the early adopters of Vitals, and so you and I had kind of talked about what we were building while we were still building it, and then you're like, dude, just like give me backdoor access to stuff. I got to get rolling here. So we didn't even really
send me everything.
Yeah. We didn't even have the website up, and I was shooting Johnny links, and so.
Yeah.
But so for those of you that are watching or listening, and maybe you're new to the Lead the Gen fam. And so you're like, what is this Vitals thing you guys keep talking about? So go to our website, leadthegeneration.com, check out Vitals for Youth Ministry. Absolutely free, all of it, 100% free. And it's a training library to resource youth pastors, youth leaders, from the vocational leader to the volunteer leader and everywhere in between. And Johnny, you as a DYD and several other DYDs across the country are utilizing it to help resource and train and equip youth pastors, using as a coaching resource. And so it's a bunch of stuff there. I won't go on all the details, but the framework of Vitals, and this is what we're going to talk about today. The framework of Vitals is 5 Vitals found from the book of Acts. So you got biblical truth, spiritual transformation, healthy community, missional living, and leadership development. And all of those are found in Acts chapter 2, and they start there and kind of extend through the rest of the history of the early church. And so what we're teaching with Vitals is that these are the 5 Vitals we want to impart into the lives of our students. These are the 5 Vitals we want to build our youth ministries around, right? And so, Johnny, that's how you've been using it to train your youth pastors. And we wanted to kind of continue a conversation with you that you've been having with a lot of your youth pastors that would fall under the biblical truth Vital, and really kind of talking about our ability as youth pastors to preach and teach gospel fluency well, right? Yeah. And I think that when we say that, you can have the response as a youth pastor of like, how do you not teach gospel fluency well? I mean, that's kind of like the basic, right? But I think this conversation will kind of help us take it deeper and also kind of challenge us as leaders in the way we present the gospel, the way we teach the gospel, the way the gospel interweaves into everything that we do and say in our preaching and teaching. So, Johnny, kick us off, in this conversation, when you're thinking about gospel fluency, what are some of the conversations you're having with your youth pastors? What are some of the topics that you guys have been challenging one another on? Just kind of break it down for us and help us jump into the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And so, I one of the things I did as a youth pastor, I would always have my teaching calendar, right? It would be, I'd get to the end of the year and I knew exactly what I wanted to share on based on like what month it was, right? Like January, new beginnings, February, relationships, we would always do missions emphasis in March. April was our wild card. May, we would do things like, who do you want to be? Who's God calling you to be? Life and purpose, because students were graduating. Like we would develop this this framework based on where students were at, or we would even let students contribute to, well, here are the topics that we want to talk about, and things like that. And I think all of that is really good. Like, we want to be intentional about what we're teaching on, so that it hits students like where they're at and what they're going through and what they're experiencing. And so I think a lot of times we view the gospel as so basic that it's not worth teaching on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do.
I say that and I almost feel sacrilegious saying that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, ooh, dodge that bolt, but I think that's how a lot of times I knew my mindset would go as a youth pastor. I would get so fixated on maybe like the topic or the hot topic, combined with all the programming that we were trying to do to try to get kids into our youth group, that I would often view this idea of the gospel as something that, well, they're in church. Everyone already knows this.
I did. As a youth pastor, 100%. I mean, I'm not proud of myself for being able to admit that, but like I viewed the gospel as like, oh yeah, that's at the end of my message right before I give the altar call and I mention that Jesus died on the cross.
Yeah.
Boom, did it.
Yeah. Or it doesn't always even fit the diagnosis of what you think is wrong in your current youth ministry. And so it's like, well, it's not going to address the things that I think either students are really going through or what students really need right now.
Yeah. It's only applicable to salvation.
Again, that sounds blasphemous saying that.
No, but that's why we're having this conversation. So Johnny, back to you. Take us deeper.
Yeah. So, so what I'm wanting, so what I want students to understand and what I want youth pastors to understand is that, listen, the gospel is not just about how you're going to end your message. Not, I always want to make sure someone gets saved, but it's this idea we operate from the base camp of the gospel. That the good news is that, man, that God so loves us that he sent his son for us, not that just that we would believe, but that we would go.
Yeah.
And so really helping the students understand, like, man, there is so much more that if you would get down to maybe like the root. So it's not just that it's basic, it's that it's the root of what's going on, is that you haven't fully really understood what the gospel means and how it affects your life. And it's not just like a cute saying, or the one Bible verse that everyone knows, like John 3:16. You could hear me kind of quoting it when I said it earlier. It's so much more than that. It's understanding that, man, this isn't just. I think Jared Barry said it, where he said the gospel is it's good news. It's not good advice.
Yeah.
It's something that we really like live our life on. Like, when I truly understand what God has done for me, man, it permeates into every aspect of my life.
Yeah.
Right. Like, man, I want to live a pure life. I want to have pure relationships. Why? Because God demonstrated what a pure relationship looks like.
Yeah.
God demonstrated what love was for me. And so I think really just helping students and leaders understand, like, man, everything that we do permeates from the idea of the gospel and what God has done for us.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is something that, like, everybody on paper is like, absolutely, I agree. Like, why wouldn't I?
I hope so, right?
Yeah, I hope so too. I hope so too. So I think where it can get like missed, again, I'm in youth ministry now. I think it just gets missed in the actual practical application of, like, what does it mean for that to truly be like the epicenter of everything? So when I'm thinking about what I should be preaching, like, I think, like, how do I practically now say, okay, everything needs to have this foundation of the gospel? Again, not a groundbreaking thought, but it is easy to miss that. Why do you think it's easy to miss that in particular? And what's the practical solution that you would give to a youth pastor? Or you're probably just giving it to youth pastors now, obviously, as the new idea of Georgia. So I'd love to hear from you.
So I think it's helping them understand the idea of that what they have been experiencing, what they experience in everyday life, is not the same as the message of the gospel. And here's what I mean by that. Everything that they do is works-based, right? They're getting graded on everything.
Yeah.
right? Like they're obviously school, work, things with parents, like they view everything through this lens of achievement, right? If I achieve enough, then that's where I'm going to have the most success, or I'm going to gain the most, right? And so I think oftentimes we don't understand that that's actually that's a mindset that's contrary to the gospel, right? That the gospel says, no, it's not about how much you can achieve to get to God, but instead it's recognizing that God wants to bring everything to you. Like God wants to bring himself to you. And so I think we see it. And when we understand the way this connects with like biblical truth, right? Like, I mean, we see it like all throughout the Old Testament, right? That people were keeping God at a distance. It was like God was too big. God was too scary. Moses, you go talk to him, right? We don't want anything of that noise. And so as you go through the Old Testament, God is constantly trying to connect with his people, and he's doing it through people because we were wanting to keep God at a distance. And so what I love is that I think that God finally says enough is enough. And he sends his son to be Emmanuel, God with us, because there was never anything that we could do that was going to achieve enough to get to him, but recognizing that like, hey, he's going to send himself to us. And so helping students really begin to understand, like, we understand this life that you're living in right now, like you will get graded, you will get judged on what you achieve. That is not the same as the kingdom of God. But that instead God is sending himself, like you will continuously fall short if you put it on your own shoulders. But instead, if you recognize like, hey, it's about me surrendering everything because he has given himself to me.
And that's not only countercultural, like, Jesus flips the script there, the gospel flips the script. That's not only like counter to our culture, like you're graded, and as a student, you're graded on your job performance, and in some cases you're graded by your performance at home as well, all these different areas. But this is one of the central differences between Christianity and every other religion in the world, right? Because every other religion is some form of works-based salvation or works-based righteousness that you and I earn. And this is a primary difference between Christianity and that, which is no, this is not about you achieving. This is about what you can receive, what God has already provided for us.
Yeah, and I think probably even the fear I've had at times is like, am I preaching works-based messages? And I think it was Jared Berry, I think, who talked about it, where we're talking about behavior modification. Am I just preaching that I would get fruit and students to adjust that, but not actually truly recognizing the need inside, which is I never can I earn enough. Like my righteousness is rags before the Lord. Like even the best of what I can give isn't enough because it's only Jesus who can qualify me. So have I been preaching, works-based messages that are unintentionally and with hopefully godly wisdom behind them, but potentially preaching in a way that might not actually be gospel-centered?
Well, and I think too, like there's nothing wrong with works, right? Like works and faith have to be paired together. Like we know that, right? That faith without works is dead. Like we demonstrate our faith, but it's we don't. How does Paul say it? He says like I don't find myself worthy by anything else but my measure of faith. And he says like that in Romans 12. Like I look at, I don't look at myself. I don't think of myself greater than I should. But instead I find my fullness. Like I find who I am based on my ability to trust God and really walk with him. And so I think, a lot of times when we talk about things like, you're not going to be good enough, it can with the culture that we live in right now, it can really cause students to like slip into almost like a depression. Well, I'm just never going to be good enough. No, but that's it's a realization that he is more than enough. And that God knew that listen, in a fallen world, you will only be able to go so far. And so he needed to come. He needed to arrive. And so there's nothing wrong with encouraging students and spurring students onto good deeds. Right. I mean, we need to have those things paired. Like the world will know who you are by your fruit, and the things that you're doing for the Lord. But those aren't the things that are going to grant you access to his presence, the thing that grants you access, right, is when we surrender everything to the Lord and we say, Lord, I believe you are who you say you are, and I know that you came and you died for me, and I know that I get to be reconnected with you, God, because of what Jesus has done.
Yeah.
Well, Caleb, you mentioned a moment ago, like one of the big differences in our preaching is preaching when we're gospel fluent and we're focused on applying, the good news of the gospel to every area of our life. That's what we've used the phrase, like that's root-based preaching.
Yeah.
Right. Rather than fruit-based, which tends to lean more towards behavior modification. So I see something in the fruit, in the behavior of my students. I want to address it. Cool. Let's cook up a little topical sermon series and let's go after that. Yeah. And let's get them to modify, what they're doing. And what we're talking about, the gospel fluency, is when you apply the gospel to the root, it affects everything.
Yeah. I've heard someone say it like this, where it's like, okay, there's flies around trash. Sometimes we're just killing the flies, but the trash is still there. And you got to take out the trash for it to be dealt with, So it's like, okay, so that's actually where I want to go is like, Johnny, like how, for a youth pastor who's like, man, I want to change the way I'm preaching, like get real practical, like coaching hat on. Like what did you say? How should our messages change? Because obviously you're saying we shouldn't just abandon, everything else outside of that. Like we shouldn't abandon the relationship series or stuff like that. But how should our preaching fundamentally change? What do you tell youth pastors who are asking that question?
Yeah. So I think, the big part of the gospel, I feel like, is this dependency, right? Where we're saying like, listen, we are looking to accomplish these things that, students want to live a pure life, or students want to have like healthy relationships. Well, we have to go to who demonstrated that for us. Right. Like it's this really, I'm often reminded, right, that I would constantly strive. Like I would come up with all of the steps myself to say, like, if I was struggling with something, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do A, B, and C. And that's going to help me do better. That's going to help me be better. And there's nothing wrong with having a plan. But I think oftentimes it's this idea that we can really leave Jesus out of it.
Yeah.
And not recognizing like, hey, we need his help. There is a dependency that is absolutely necessary, and he will be the one to give you strength, right? Like if you're needing wisdom, like you need to go to him for wisdom. You need to ask him for wisdom, not and I would even say this as a youth pastor, like I'm gonna be led by the Holy Spirit, and I'm gonna preach with conviction. But at the same time, I'm going to encourage my students, like, hey, are you getting in this yourself, right? Like, are you really digging into this, or are you just listening to me every single week, right? Like, you can't be dependent on me, because if I give my life, it doesn't amount to the same thing as what God has given when Jesus gave his life. So really the steps that I'm encouraging our youth pastors to take is to say, listen, we need our students to claim ownership of their salvation and their relationship with Jesus, right? Like you got to move away from when you ask someone about do you have a relationship with Jesus? Well, my mom goes to church, or I go to church, and it's where it becomes all about the attendance. No, like, but do you know him? Right? Do you know Jesus? Do you have a relationship with him? Like, do you spend time in the Word for yourself, or are you getting 20 minutes of a message and hoping that that's enough to fill your tank as you go through the rest of your week? And so, I think there's this. I always try to tell like our students whenever we're getting into the words, we say like, listen, like we all love the idea of salvation. Salvation, it sounds really good. Who doesn't want to be saved, right? Like, who doesn't want to just spend an eternity in heaven, right? But then this idea of like, well, Jesus will be your savior, but will he also be your Lord, right? Because if he's your savior, that's great, man. I get my get out of hell free card, and I'm ready to go. Like, let's do this thing. But is he really your Lord, to where you're getting in the Word, you're listening to his voice, and you're walking out that relationship with him? I think the idea of ownership is something that's going to be so vital for these students as they're walking out their faith.
Save me, but don't change me.
Right,
You know?
exactly.
I heard this kind of a crazy analogy, but Dallas Willard said, we become vampire Christians. We want the blood, but we don't want the power that comes along with
it. I've never heard that.
And I was like, it's kind of like I said, it's kind of a crazy illustration.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's like give me the blood because I want salvation, but I don't want it to be applied in a way to the idols of my heart that are going to bring about transformation.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, just speaking of for myself now as a youth pastor, my understanding of the gospel was limited to, it's just the moment of salvation that we're talking about, which obviously Jesus, provided through his death on the cross and his resurrection from the grave. But when we talk about the gospel, that's what it is. It's just there. And I think what you're driving at, Johnny, with your youth pastors and what I've even had to kind of evolve and grow in my own theological understanding was like, no, the gospel applies not just to the moment I receive salvation and forgiveness of my sins, but it applies to the whole process of me being sanctified and becoming more Christ-like, right? And that's what I hear you saying that when you say, is Jesus just your Savior or is he also your Lord? Because lordship is an issue of sanctification. Salvation, Savior is an issue of salvation, and that's instantaneous gift, right? But lordship is like, I'm gonna spend the rest of my life, fighting for this thing right here.
Yeah. I think this is pinpointing something I felt too, where it's like moving students from this seeing salvation as just a moment that happens and it's done to it's actually the start. It's day one of the entire process, the entire journey. And I love what you're saying of like moving them into a place of spiritual ownership and even spiritual independence of like, could we be preaching that they're just so dependent on me and what I can feed them that I just have a bunch of spiritual babies that are like my 3-month-old son who just like can't do anything other than like has to come to mom to get his food. It's like, how do I move them into how do I change my preaching to be that getting them to a place where they're a little more spiritually independent?
Yeah, and I think too, I think anytime if we're talking about things like salvation and we're talking about the idea of understanding the gospel, we have to understand the mission. Like when you surrender your life to Jesus, he immediately puts you on mission.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Like the gospel that has changed your life is meant to go. Like, hello, it's the first 2 letters in gospel. You gotta go is literally in there, man. You've gotta take that, and you have to. I mean, we need our students to be on mission. And so I think for youth pastors, it's it's an exciting thing when you don't just have students who are just like, oh, that was a great message. Oh, I really felt something, to now they're coming to you and they're like, what do I do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that is the next step in this journey of the gospel is the sharing of it. Is that's that next part in ownership is that, man, like you finally get to live out this purpose and this call that God has had for your life from the very beginning. Like, man, you were dead and now you're alive. Like, let's get to this. Like, let's get into the mission. So I think for youth pastors, man, we got to be ready to have that next step. And I'm not just talking baptism, which is obviously, the next step in the journey, but I mean, really just, man, can you have a roadmap for mission?
Yeah.
Like when a student gives their life to Jesus, like to where you're able to disciple them so that they can in turn share what you have just been pouring into them, and so that's really my heart for our youth pastors and really for our students here in Georgia has been, man, can you really not just own this, but can you give it? Like, can you share it? Has it impacted your life enough that you would say, how do I keep this to myself? Yeah. Right? Like, can you walk out the mission? Because, I shared this when we were talking before we started, man, our camps have been blowing up. It's been absolutely awesome. Like when Aaron came, we had just moved into 4 weeks of camp, and Aaron spoke at our 4th week. That following year, we had to add a 5th week, so we are currently in 5 weeks of camp. 2,200 students and leaders coming through our camps this year, which is just absolutely incredible. And we try to look at some of these stats, and it's it's not always about the numbers, but numbers are still an indicator, and so it's good to look at them. them. And so, we saw, I think our number was somewhere in the realm of like 750 to 800 students rededicating their lives to Jesus.
Wow.
Which is absolutely incredible. We saw over 300 students baptized in the Holy Spirit, over 300 students say that the Lord was calling them into full-time ministry.
Let's go. Come on.
And so, we look at all that, and we were celebrating it, and we were so excited about it. And then we looked at our salvation number, like first time salvation, and it was 70, which, we celebrated. That's 70 souls in the kingdom. That is nothing to, turn your nose up at or anything like that. But the numbers told a story for us. And it was that, man, we're doing a really good job of reaching church kids. With camp. And that's, again, that's not a bad thing, but I think really understanding, like, guys, like if you are saying God is calling you, and if you're saying that God is filling you with the Holy Spirit so that you could go be a witness, man, then you have to be so overwhelmed by the message of the gospel that you can't help but share it.
Yeah.
And so, like, we're trying to convince youth pastors and students, like, saying, like, hey, like, man, utilize what really is a life-changing week for so many students.
Yeah.
Right. To utilize this as like, man, if you can get someone, not just like a fringe student that you're trying to bring back, yes, we want them, but can you get your student to say, man, if I can get my friend here, like I know what it did for me, and I know what the gospel means to me. So I'm gonna do everything I can to bring this person who I know doesn't have a relationship with Jesus to get them to have an encounter with him. Yeah. And that's what the gospel, I feel like, should do. It should overwhelm us to the point where we're like, man, I've got to share this with somebody.
Yeah.
Well, and you're talking about like, so the fruit looks different when you and I are preaching gospel fluency, right? So like behavior modification, the fruit of that is what students stop doing or try to stop doing, right?
Yeah.
Versus gospel fluency, and the fruit of that is oftentimes seen in what do we start doing? Right, and that's what I hear you saying. Like you're like, I want to see the fruit of gospel fluent students who not only are disciples themselves, but they become reproducing disciples, because a natural byproduct or the natural fruit of a healthy gospel fluent root. Ooh!
Wow!
Drop a little beat behind that.
Just come on,
right. The natural fruit of a gospel fluent root is a producing disciple.
Yeah,
you should see that produce. What are so on that thought then, Johnny, Caleb? What are some other? What would you say are some signs in the life of students that gospel fluency is taking root in their life?
So, I think one of the things that we've even seen in our district, we have seen this increase of students on mission, especially through things like Youth Alive. And if you know what Youth Alive is, it's a training apparatus for students to share Jesus with their friends. We've seen students who, man, just become so fired up about seeing their friends come to know Jesus. And we're seeing these little small town high schools of students that are reaching, I'm talking like 200 students saved this year on a high school campus in Manchester, Georgia.
Wow.
Like it's things that are just blowing my mind right now. And it's, I think part of this, of the things that we're wanting to see is man, just this apathy beginning to just fall off of students. Because I think if you look at this generation right now, right, they have this huge capacity for love and for caring for others, for compassion, and I think oftentimes what the world does is that it twists it to its own culture. And so, I think what the gospel does, and when students really get a hold of the gospel, is that this love and compassion is directed in the way that says, like, man, I've learned what real love looks like. I've experienced the purest love that comes through what Jesus has done for me. And man, I won't quit. There's this one kid, man, who I've had a couple of meetings with him, and I mean, he is just so fired up. He's like, I will not stop until my entire school is reached. and I'm like, dude, man, I was just trying to like pass like senior English. You know what I'm saying? Like I wouldn't just like, and not just because I'm Puerto Rican, but like honestly, that just wasn't in my brain. Like I was so busy as a teenager just trying to make my parents happy and just trying to, not get into trouble, that I never really that switch. And even though I was in youth group, I grew up in church as a teenager, but that switch never really flipped in my head of like, man, this is my mission field. I truly believe that what God has done in my life is so that I can reach those that are around me. And I think that's where we're seeing is that the mindset of students is just kind of like opening up. Their vision is expanding.
Yeah.
Because of what's happening.
Yeah. I think he nailed it right on the head. Like telltale sign is, man, am I going out and doing something about what I've just heard?
Yeah.
And I think I was similar to you, Johnny. Like I grew up in church and I grew up as a Christian, but like those things didn't hit me. Like, yeah, in high school, my concern was probably, what girl do I want to be with right now? Who do I think is attractive? Who am I trying to raise up a little bit? But like that didn't hit me until probably when I was in college. And I'm like, how do I get students to begin to grasp that now of like, oh my goodness, I am so broken and Jesus is so good. And like, I have this crazy love now for God. And it's like, how do I get students to catch that at early stage? Because the more you know how good Jesus is, the harder it is to not just be like, everyone needs to know about this.
Yeah.
Because people are stuck and hurting and broken and lost. And like, that's actually my friends in high school. That's my neighbors. That's my coworkers.
Yeah.
And so it really is like, how can I get you to have that true encounter with not just a hype moment or an emotional experience or even good advice, but how do I get you to encounter what the gospel truly does, which is it makes you realize just how good Jesus is to us.
It's a transformation of our heart.
Yeah, it's the renewing of the mind. Yeah,
I think Tim Keller said something like, "We become what we behold."
Yeah,
and that's when the gospel begins to grab our heart and transform us. Then we become. Then we start that process of becoming, more like Christ. And then in the process of that, the idols of our heart, that which has held us captive, those things tend to they get destroyed. By the root of the gospel, in our life, which is incredible.
And I love, I think what I'm constantly trying to get students to understand is the idea of demonstration, right? I love, Romans, where it says that God demonstrates his love for us.
Come on.
And that while we were sinners, Christ died. And I think I'm always blown away by it, because I'm like, God didn't have to demonstrate it. He's God. He could have just played the authority card and just said, I'm God, love one another, do it. And us just try to, but instead he chose to put it on display.
Yeah.
He chose to demonstrate it for us. And so I think this idea of like, man, what are the signs of a student really grabbing a hold of gospel fluency is the demonstration.
Yeah.
Is that we're saying like, man, they've seen, they've experienced what true love really is, in the fact that before they ever made a decision to follow Jesus, before they ever got their act together or they started behaving right, Jesus died for them.
Yeah.
And so he gave his life. He demonstrated.
So take us practical, just, the last couple minutes we have here with you, Johnny, take us practical. You mentioned earlier that when you were youth pastoring, you had, you'd always have an annual calendar, like a preaching calendar, and different themes that you'd hit in different months. Knowing what you know now, how would you tweak that if you were youth pastoring again? I'm assuming you would probably not say, "Oh, I would throw away an annual teaching plan." You probably would still do that, but how would you tweak that preaching plan to increase gospel fluency in your preaching and teaching, and therefore hopefully in your students as well?
Yeah. So, I think, one thing that I would try to do is, again, give giving my students a mission, right? Like after, if I'm teaching on something, like let's say, I'm teaching on relationships, then I'm giving them this practical step of, man, this is how the gospel is demonstrated through healthy relationships. So this week, do something today, like demonstrate a form of compassion for someone. If we're talking about things like God's will for your life, I'm connecting it back to, okay, well, why did Jesus come? What was God's will for him? He said, not my will, but yours be done. So he accomplished that mission, again, connecting it back to the gospel and saying, what can you trust God? What can you set to the side, even though this is your own desire and this is what you want, right? What can you set aside and say, Lord, this may be what I want, but not my will, but yours be done. Like I'm constantly like currying it back to mission. I think I got so locked in to the result of the numbers, like, well, how many kids came to the altar, or how many kids, but instead of really focusing on that after effect, like what kind of next step can I give to my students after that message, and then bring it back and give them an opportunity to talk about it that next week. Yeah. Like I wish I would have done more in the next steps and follow up than just in the result of the night, if that makes sense.
Are there any topics you can think of? This might be a weird question, but like looking through the lens of gospel fluency, like you're looking now, are there any topics that you used to preach about as a youth pastor that you would now preach in a very different way? Yeah, like I said, I knew it was a weird question, but I feel like, but I don't know. I feel like it also might be an enlightening question too, because I think that like if I sat down with that question and did like some mental homework, I know, and I know, Caleb, I was a youth pastor a long time ago. I'm a very old person.
Before computers. They missed that part when we talked.
If I went back through my scrolls that I wrote,
so to unwrap it, yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that like there probably are some ways that I approach certain topics that I would probably, through the framework of gospel fluency, I would probably hit them very differently. I don't know. Might just be a good question to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I do. And I think, and I hope it's not too repetitive, but I think, again, I go back to this idea of the mission.
Yeah.
Of mission. Like, I'm saying like, hey, like this call, even like going to things like the Great Commission and how he's called all of us to go, and he's called all of us to make disciples and called all of us to teach others about what he has taught to us. I think even in some of the topics, like I was trying to go through like my Rolodex of like different topics that I would do, like, we would do like evangelism in the fall. And so that's an easy one, like how do we, what's the next step on mission there? But I think, the main thing that I go back to every single time is, man, how can I get a student on the mission of sharing the gospel? So even if we're talking about a thing like relationships, or if I'm talking about, even if I'm talking about, one of the sermon series that we had the most attended was when I did a rapture series. When I did a series on the end times, and I was like, man, students freak me out. Like, I don't like why is this the one that they're so interested in? But but again, just going back to, man, like I feel like every message or every series that I would do, I would get students on the mission of, man, who are you reaching? Yeah. Like who are you reaching? Like even if we're talking about, the end times, the main thing would be, but are you ready? Do you have a good do you have a right relationship with Jesus? Like you're trying to figure out all the different details. Are you pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib? All those different things. But are you ready? And are your friends ready? Have you talked to a friend of yours? Who have you shared the gospel with? Who have you talked to about Jesus so that they can be ready? Does that make sense? Like I just I feel like those would be the routes that I would take. And that was just never so, man, I was just trying to throw together a good message that would produce a good result in that one service, and so I think but the more that I would get students on mission, the more that we would see our youth group grow, because this, like we said earlier, they owned it, they believed it, and then they would share it. Yeah. And and that's where it becomes really life-changing for so many of them.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
So good.
Heck yeah. Well, dude, thanks for being on the podcast. This is awesome.
Yeah.
This is a great conversation.
Great. Yeah.
Again, I love that we get to just go deep on one of the vitals, because everything is so nuanced. When we talk about like the framework of this, when you dive into the deep topics of what goes on, it really is, you get into the gray area. So thanks for bringing some clarity to some of the gray.
Absolutely.
And hopefully a lot of youth pastors, youth leaders, whether you're full-time, bivocational, this has just been a really healthy conversation to help give you a framework.
And I encourage you to, jump on the Lead the Generation website. Go to the Biblical Truth Vital. There's multiple videos and different voices. We mentioned Jared Berry a couple times. He's in some of those videos talking about gospel fluency, kind of breaking down some things both practically and theologically. And then I'd also say if you again go to I have no problem talking about our resources now because they're all free. So it's like if you go to our resource page on our website, and there's over 50 different sermon series made available by youth pastors across the country. And there's just great series there on the gospel, and series that just focus on that. And so I think that can help you as a communicator too, especially if you're a youth pastor, youth leader listening. You can sharpen your skills as a communicator by listening to or reading the sermons that others have read. And some of it you might use for yourself, and some of it you'll rewrite and make your own. That's all great. But that's how we sharpen one another. So, Johnny, thanks so much. How can people find you? Someone's listening today. They want to connect with you, throw you a message, whatever. Where you at?
Yeah, for sure. Johnny F. Mendoza on everything. I'll drop this bomb. My middle name is Felix. So if you're so yeah, Johnny F. Mendoza on like Instagram and stuff. We because of Lead the Generation and Vitals, we were able to launch, I mentioned this earlier, our youth ministry resourcing called Gym Class. And so we too started a podcast just talking about various aspects of youth ministry, of things that we do here in Georgia. This is actually the set right here behind me. And so you can find us Gym Class Podcast on Instagram and Spotify as well. So, man, thank you so much, guys, for having me. Man, I just really, really appreciate it. You guys are doing an amazing job. Excited about what God's doing through you.
I love that you got Baby Yoda on the set. We got Baby Coda on the set here.
Whoa.
Oh, here he comes.
Aaron's dropping bars today.
I was literally about to say that, man. The bars are out of control.
Yeah, what's happening?
I don't know. We don't, we're recording on a Thursday. We usually record on Mondays. Maybe we need to switch or something. I don't know. It's
Yeah, Thursday's usually when you record your mixes, right?
Maybe that's what it is. That's what it is. So, no, it's been great, Johnny. Thank you, Caleb. As always, an honor to co-host with you. Those of you that are with us, you love the Lead the Gen fam. Make sure you share. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that good stuff on YouTube or whatever podcast platform that you're listening on, and give us a review. That'll help us as we're kind of spreading the word about all this. And thanks for joining us for Vitals for Youth Ministry Podcast. Can't wait to see you on one of our future episodes. Thanks for joining us.